guys. Thank you so much.
Do you want your paper?
Thank you.
One more. Apologies. Thank you. No, I think that's all. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. We appreciate you for joining us. I'm NBC play-by-play announcer Noah Eagle. First and foremost, again, good morning and thank you for what should be a very exciting day, an exciting time for USA Basketball. Also want to extend a huge thank you to our partners at Nike for the hospitality, for hosting us today, this wonderful facility. Joined today by three legends, if we're being honest, on the stage. We start with USA Basketball CEO Jim Tooley. We've got Women's National Team Director Brianna Weiss, and of course, five-time Olympic gold medalist Sue Bird. So Jim, before we get started, I'll hand it to you.
Well, thanks, Noah. Very much appreciate it. Everyone's seen the news, but today we're here to officially announce, and on behalf of the Board of Directors of USA Basketball, that Sue Bird has been named the first ever Managing Director for the Women's National Team. So, Sue, congratulations. Thanks for taking this on. I've been asked, Sue's pedigree and standing within the sports community, not just in women's basketball, is second to none. And we're just really fortunate to be able to announce this. I know we've talked about it for a little bit, and it's great, though, and we're so pleased that you're on board with us. So thank you for taking it on.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's starting to get annoying with how good Sue is at everything. It just feels like that person.
Same.
Because after retiring from an illustrious career, mentioned the 5 gold medals in the Olympics, 4 World Cup gold medals, obviously the WNBA career speaks for itself. The media career has now been meteoric as well, and now adding an executive role with USA Basketball, going to be in control of helping to choose a lot of the teams for the Olympics in 2028, FIBA World Cup, and qualifying as well, getting ready for training camps, everything like that. I think the obvious place to start with you, Sue, is just your interest in a role like this. Obviously the playing career, now the media career, but what really spoke to you about taking on something like this?
I think a combination of things. Initially, I really wasn't super interested. We're going back a couple of years. It wasn't something that I thought I was ready for. I had just retired. I know USA Basketball had been thinking about moving to this managing director role. So yeah, initially I wasn't really sure, but then I think as my retirement has played out, I've tried new things. I've been in different, quote unquote rooms, talking to Jim more about it, talking to General Dempsey, talking to Bree, talking to Grant Hill even. I just started to sit with it, and it really started to stick that I loved being a part of USA Basketball as a player. I loved carrying on that tradition, and now I could still do it, albeit in a different role, a supportive role, but I could still be a part of that, and I felt confident in it, and I also felt an excitement that I hadn't felt in a while, and I think put all that together, and here we are.
Well, Sue, you mentioned it. Jim, you've already mentioned it. This was something that you guys have been talking about for a little while, and you've known Sue now for 2 decades. You know what she is as a player, her work ethic, everything like that. But what encouraged you to go after her and really try to make this happen?
Well, Sue's been a leader on and off the court her entire career, and as I said earlier, her pedigree and standing within the sports world is unparalleled. So, she's a person of character, integrity, and really proud that she's going to take this on. And she gave it a lot of thought. So this was important enough to think about, for quite some time. And so we finally got across the finish line, and we're really happy to be going in this direction.
Brianna, you really got to know Sue as a player and welcome her in, USA Basketball-wise. What excites you about now having her as a colleague?
I'm so excited. I think Jim kind of hit on it. I've seen her obviously be point guard for the women's national team, and everyone sees that in the games, but I had the privilege of seeing it in practices, in the locker room. The leadership qualities that she shows as a player, I think are really transferable in this new role off the court. So I'm just so excited to be her teammate the next 4 years as we prepare for the World Cup next year and obviously the Olympics in 28.
Well, Bryn brings it up, so let's go right to the World Cup. It's only 18 months away in Berlin. I know that things happen fast. But as you get ready and now you start this new role, what are some of your priorities as you kind of get set for World Cup in Berlin?
First and foremost, we'll be choosing a coach. There's no specific timeline on that, but obviously that is super important. And then once that's done, choosing like the larger staff, obviously getting the coaches' input on that is really important. And then for me personally, of course, there's an aspect of this where I'm going to be watching a lot of basketball, I'm going to be watching a lot of players, something I was already doing, so that's kind of nice. But I think there's an aspect of this where I know what I bring, I know what my perspective gives, I know what my experience can provide, and there's also things that I need to learn. There's also things that I want to talk to other people, pick brains, maybe ask people what their experiences have been like. So I think, that combination will probably be my next however many months.
Jim, we were talking about this the other day. There's no question that the USA women are arguably the best dynasty in all sports at this point. 8 straight gold medals in the Olympics, just dominant in international play. But at the same time, the international game is getting better and better. We saw it in Paris this summer, and we saw that gold medal game came right down to the wire. So bringing Sue on, where do you feel like her advantages can be in helping to keep that distance with the U.S. and the rest of the world?
Well, her knowledge of the game, knowledge of the players, and of the opponents, too, is well-rounded, and having a managing director versus a committee allows us to be more nimble. And the sport, the pace of the game and of the business is so much more intense than it used to be. It just helps us be a lot more flexible and get our priorities, and we can strategize long-term with a single person versus a committee that kind of comes and goes. So this helps us in so many ways.
I do think Sue's vibe, just being courtside for those games of the Olympics, helped push them over the top. That's just me. I am a little biased. I know Jim agrees. We are going to open up for questions. If you have a question, raise your hand. We'll get you a microphone, state your name and your affiliation, and fire away from there.
Hi, everyone. Mike Borenov with The Athletics. Sue, congratulations. I guess from like a procedural standpoint, obviously you've been involved with Team USA for so many years, so you know how it all kind of works. In your new role, do you intend to change and think differently about how teams are filled out, how coaches are picked, like all those parts of your job that are now your own?
Well, I think it's just naturally different given that it's a managing director versus what was a committee, so that just in and of itself is different. I imagine, though, I'm just going to bring my knowledge. I'm going to bring my experience. I think being a player is unique. I've had to be on a variety of USA basketball teams, whether we were trying to win a gold medal at the Olympics or at a World Cup, or just getting together to get some practices in to have an exhibition game. And a big part of that is understanding players, understanding who fits, understanding chemistry. You're also playing for a variety of coaches. At times, maybe the head coach couldn't be there because they had other obligations, so you're playing for assistants. My point is, I've experienced all of that. And part of my role as a point guard, as a leader, was to make it work. And so I'm really gonna lean on that understanding, not just in USA basketball, really my entire career. That's kind of always existed, and that's really what I wanna bring here. Just analyzing, keeping my eyes open, watching players, and just trying to see what's gonna fit to allow us to win gold medals. Bless you.
This is Ralph Equal, nothing but that sports. So congratulations on your new role, Sue Bird. I just want to know, after witnessing everything that happened with the USA women's team last year, what are you doing? Will you look to add more pedigree to the type of organization USA basketball's built?
Yeah, I don't think that's what's happening here at all. I don't think that's what's needed. We have amazing talent, amazing players, amazing talent in the coaching pool. Yes, the gold medal game was close. Yes, we're all sweating a little bit. That's not new. I think there's a misconception there that we just steamroll, and of course there are games where we do, so I'm not gonna gaslight you or anything like that. But I could sit here and go back in my own playing days and give you tons of examples of being down at halftime, having close games, having to pull things out in major competitions. So I understand, because it was the gold medal game and it was in Paris and there was a lot of conversation leading to that moment, why that felt as if it was different from any other competition, but it's really not. And that's what makes winning the gold medals tough. But that's also what we all understand, those that are a part of this program at every level, from player to coach to executive. We know that we're gonna get every team's best shot. We know that we have to come ready. and we know that we have to put it together quickly with not as much preparation time. So none of that is really going to be different, I don't think, in the next 4 years, and it's been in the last 30.
Good morning, everybody. Brian Florenson from the local W and Black Rosie Media. For Sue, this is your first executive role in basketball. What do you think will be the sort of biggest transition you have from being a point guard who's had so many great dynamics with people to being in an executive role like this?
Honestly, you said it. I've never really sat in this seat. Although I did serve a little bit of an executive role with the Denver Nuggets. I don't want people to forget about that. But I actually bring that up to say I had no responsibility. Nothing was going to live and die by my decisions. But I did get to sit in a room with a lot of the people that did have the responsibility. And I did get to learn. I did get to listen to those conversations. That was in 2000, the NBA 2018-19 season. And I actually used a lot of what I learned there when I went back to the Seattle Storm. And I would tell anybody who would listen, like, well, this is what they do in Denver. This is what Tim said. This is what this is like. I bring that up again. I've never been in the seat, but I have a ton of experience in other ways that other people who could have been in the seat might not have had. So just trying to really bring that and then again, lean on those that have been here. Really try to lean on that and understand that, yes, I am a big part of this decision. I'm not the only part of these decisions.
Hey, Sue, Andy Lipton with Wim Hoops Guru and Leading the Break. The national teams play a lot together, a lot of familiarity. Do you think the U.S. needs to get to the final roster much sooner, and do they need to play, together, much earlier before the Olympics?
I think in a perfect world, we would get to train for 8 months and put it all together and go to these major competitions. But that's just not what is allowed in the calendar, in the schedule. The good news is we now have a version of practice at this. We understand what it is in terms of the time constraints. We understand what it is from all the perspectives in terms of when we have a couple days, we have to make the most of them. And I think another good part is that a lot of players play together in the WNBA and even against each other in the WNBA. Playing against a player can also give you a sense of who they are and what their style is. So, in a perfect world, would we have all year to do it? Yeah, but that's just not the world that we live in. So we do have practice at making the best of what we do have.
Thanks and congrats.
Thank you.
Hi, Maddie Kenny with the New York Post for Sue again. We're seeing just like the growth of women's basketball globally, even with how many international players in the WNBA isn't new, but there's definitely a lot more than there used to be. And even with national teams, elevating their programs and stuff like that. So I guess could you speak to the growth of the game globally and how, that margin between USA basketball and everyone else is kind of starting to shrink, which, can be good for the game?
I think it's great for the game. Iron sharpens iron. It's the only way to do it. So to see the growth of our game domestically, whether it's the leagues themselves, the college game, USA basketball is amazing. But then when you see it internationally, I think it speaks to the world changing in so many ways. You mentioned a lot of international players have been coming to the WNBA, and of course we've been going overseas for so long. But I think that the increase in that is only going to continue to happen. And, it's going to, again, back to the iron sharpening iron, I think it's going to just allow the games of all the countries to raise. I don't know, I think that the team for some reason that comes to mind is Nigeria, because I got to play against them back in, I don't want to date myself, like 2006 maybe, if I'm like pulling right from my memory. And they were like okay. And then you fast forward 15 plus years, and this is like a team that I didn't want to play. I matching up against them in Tokyo, that was one of our toughest games. And even when I was in Paris watching, and I forget what round we ended up seeing them, but I was nervous. People were like, calm down. I was like, no, you don't get it. Like, this is a country, this is a team on the rise. But what ended up happening, we played great too. And that's kind of that full circle moment that I feel like you want the game to grow, and then as far as USA basketball goes, you want to be challenged. You want to see what you're made of. And you want to play your best in those moments.
Hi, Sue Grady Diaz. Good to see you. You obviously have so many personal relationships within basketball. Can you talk about maybe one or two of the messages that you received from people who have been involved with USA Basketball, and what sort of advice are they giving you in this new role?
Yeah, it's been really well received. Everything from, congratulations, a couple of you were born for this, which always feels nice. I think Grant Hill really sticks out. He's just somebody that through this whole process, he's kind of turned into this annoying big brother in a sense where, he didn't bug me per se, but he was just always kind of right there in my ear about this role, but more so just telling me how much he enjoyed it and how much it brought out of him. Obviously, the goal is to win gold medals, and obviously in this role, you're just trying to provide whatever support you can to get there. But he also was like, man, my juices got going. Like, I hadn't felt that in a while. It's really something special. So to go through this process a little bit with him, like I said, kind of in my ear, and then today, he texted just to enjoy the moment and congratulations. He might have been one of those, you were born for this, was really special. And I'm glad, more than anything, that I can really rely on him. I mean, he is available whenever for whatever question, because he's obviously just kind of gone through it. Not kind of, he's just gone through it. So I feel really lucky that I have him.
Jim, she brings up Grant, and obviously that was the precedent for this role, somebody who took this on head on. How do you feel like the experience of working directly with Grant will now make this a seamless transition for Sue?
Well, as Sue mentioned, he's a great resource for her. He has been in the trenches, and it was great to see him take it on in such a way. His juices did get flowing, and so he was very helpful in giving insights. We asked Grant, tell Sue the good, bad, and ugly of this. So that would help her, mold her decision. And he's terrific. We're proud to have both of them involved. We also have Jim and Fredette involved, and 3x3 managing director. So we're really very proud of the people that are representing us.
And Brianna, you mentioned initially that seeing Sue as the point guard of the team on and off the court just gave you extreme promise for what this is going to look like. I remember Sue said something during the Olympics this year, said that Olympic teams in particular were the hardest teams that you had to play on because it requires so much sacrifice as a player. So seeing how she was as a player and hearing what Grant did for the men's team, how do you feel like that's going to now translate in this role in trying to really portray what that sacrifice looks like going into these competitions?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Sue's passion for basketball, Sue's passion for USA Basketball is just going to fuel what we have in front of us. I mean, my job is to collaborate with her, work with her, figure out how she works, give her the information she needs as we're working through this process, and just support her along the way to the best of my ability. So thankfully, the countdown of 18 months to the World Cup was helpful, but we do have time. So I think it's not rushing the process. It's let's do this one step at a time. So when the decision time arrives, we're ready.
Are there any other questions from the audience here? No? Great. Well, Sue, congratulations once again. It's an honor to have you as a part of USA Basketball. We are going to ask these three here to take a photo, a nice photo opportunity. Again, thank you to Nike. Thank you for everybody for joining us here today.
Real quick, our 3 staff members will also be available for small groups after the photo for a few minutes.